not good news.
In the UK, the black dog has been around for hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. Although what's funny is that most of the time it's an evil spirit. There are a few that are benevolent, if not helpful, which those are the ones that I want to see.
Oh yeah.
But no, it's always a black dog.
Yeah, kind of tough on it. Say if you're a black lab, you're just this friendly, happy black lab, and everybody thinks you're evil.
You go to run up to somebody and say, "Hi, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing?"
I'm a good boy.
Yeah, bang,
Wait,
bang.
are we playing chase? Okay, I'll catch you.
Yeah.
Black labs are the best dogs.
They are cool dogs. Yeah. There is, even here in America, there's a little bit of a prejudice against black dogs.
Yeah, unfortunately.
There really is.
Not as much as black cats, but
no, that's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, there definitely is one. All right, well, we're going to talk about a few theories here. But first, I hear a black dog scratching on my door. So let me take a quick break here and go answer that.
It's pitch black. Open your eyes. This is a good start to your day. You're in bed, in your bedroom. It's a mess. It's a small bedroom with a faded rug and dirty walls. There's your robe, a screwdriver, and a toothbrush outside of your bed. You have to decide, get out of bed? If you do, your friend Ford might take you on an unbelievable adventure. If you don't, well, you'll spend the whole day in bed. If the thought of getting out of bed to travel the universe seems unbearable, you might want to talk to somebody about that. Lucky for you, you don't even have to get out of bed with Talkspace. Talkspace is the online therapy company, and they make it easy to connect with a licensed therapist handpicked just for you for as little as $32 a week. Using Talkspace, you can text, audio, and video message with your therapist as much as you want. To sign up or learn more, go to Talkspace.com/sideways. And as a special offer for our listeners, you can use coupon code SIDEWAYS to get $30 off your first month and show your support of the show. That's Sideways and Talkspace.com/sideways. And don't forget your towel.
And we're back. It was okay, not a black dog. It was just my cat. All right, let's talk about some theories. All right, our first theory, suicide. We're talking about who and why he was killed, etc. In case you've forgotten our story. The murder of Charlie Walton, the witchcraft murder. So suicide. Either one of you guys want to go to bat for the suicide theory?
No.
So is this your new MO?
Yeah,
What a funny kid, absolutely not any theory in the very beginning of it.
Suicide seems a little unlikely. He would have had to have been a very, very determined suicidal guy, I think.
We've talked about the silliness of this kind of stuff before this kind of story.
No, we'll just rule that one right out, I think.
Yeah.
It wasn't suicide. Obviously, probably not natural causes. Probably not accidental.
Mm-hmm.
So that leaves kind of murder.
Yeah.
It kind of does. Let's start with some of the more sensational and interesting ones first. There's one theory that was out there floating around quite a bit, which is that Charlie was killed by a coven of witches as a sacrifice to replenish the soil. And so apparently the date actually has some significance. Apparently that date under the old calendar, and I don't know which calendar that is, but that's what they say, the old calendar, that was considered Candlemas Day, and that was the day when you had a chance to influence the next growing season, and the best way to do that was to kill somebody.
Blood sacrifice?
And let their blood drain into the soil.
I'll just say, I know you have some other stuff here, but in my understanding of witches, they are not typically super akin to like Christian symbolism.
Which Ash Wednesday would be something of?
Yeah, or like, the cross carved in the chest, like usually be like a pentagram or something more Wiccan.
According to the papers anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you would think more than just a cross, which typically I think is a hindrance to witches, isn't it? Or are there Christian witches? Am I missing something?
it might not have been a symbol of their own faith. It might have been mocking his faith. I mean, when you think about it, imagine this in this sense. It's like, well, hey, we just did whatever with the hell we pleased with you. Your God didn't do anything for you, did he? Ha ha.
Yeah.
And so that's one way of looking at the cross.
That's true. Though I guess for me, I think they're trying to make a sacrifice to their gods or their beliefs. So you would want to do as much to honor your beliefs as possible, not degrade.
Not degrade the guy that you're. That's
good
good.
fortune.
I'm right behind her on that one. That makes
is a good
more
point.
sense.
Yeah, he would
That
say,
does
"Oh,
make more sense.
Almighty God of the soil, here is this sacrifice to you in which we carved your symbol." And for all I know, the symbol is a cross. I don't know.
Or the
I'm not a
the
witch.
symbol of Dobby is right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I am assuming that the cross is not the witch symbol.
But I could be wrong.
You know, I've never heard you be wrong before.
That's true.
Yeah,
I've never before in my entire life ever been wrong.
No,
so
I mean, I was once.
Yeah.
I thought I'd made a mistake. Turned out I hadn't. That
this
was
would be
about
a
it.
first.
Yeah,
it's
no.
true.
Yeah. Where were we? What are some of
So
the
this
other,
is a druid. So
kind of a druid ceremony.
I was gonna say, because I see we're talking about witches, and yet I see druids, and I didn't know that those were so much interchangeable.
Yeah, I don't know either. I actually am not an expert on the druids, and
Nobody really is.
Not really. No, there's
Very
not,
little
not
remains
that much
of
is
the
known.
druid.
Apparently, there was a what was thought by many to be a druid ruin, which is a stone circle, which was at least in 1945 called the Whispering Knights.
And that was supposed to be close to the murder scene. Is that what it was?
Exactly. Yeah. So that has some significance in people's minds that it was so close, and also. Apparently, Warwickshire itself was, and perhaps still even is, a hotbed of witchery. And then, of course, the Druids apparently considered Ash Wednesday to be a significant day, the D-Day to make the sacrifices to the earth. Although they didn't, to them it wasn't Ash Wednesday, obviously, because they predated all the Ash Wednesday stuff, right?
But the problem, of course, is that what was it's the Whispering Knights?
Yeah.
Isn't actually close
No, it's like
to the
12,
murder scene.
it's like 12 miles away.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, that's close, I guess, when you think about it in the overall scheme of things. I mean, look how far the Earth is from the sun. Yeah. I mean,
True.
But yeah, no, 12 miles is kind of a long ways.
So are we going to talk about the bunkiness of the cross?
Yeah, the cross actually is not mentioned in the autopsy at all. Apparently, the cross carved in the chest was sort of made up by somebody.
Oh, boo.
Yeah, I mean, big surprise. I mean, how often does that happen? This just goes to show you that, everybody thinks that all this crap about fake news all began with the internet. I'm sorry to tell you this, guys.
It happened ages ago.
Oh, it's been happening forever, I think.
Okay, is that all we've got
but,
on the whole coven thing?
Yeah, and so so the con thing is like, well, okay, he was anywhere near some sort of Druid circle. There was no cross, and according to the experts, Wiccan experts that I've heard quoted about this particular thing, is he was actually too old for the sacrifice. Apparently, you want young blood.
Yeah, I mean, you would, right?
Yeah, you want young blood.
Yeah, isn't it always it's the young virgin?
That
is
kind of deal.
the perfect vessel for
well,
sacrifice?
they have the young energy that can replenish the energy of the soil, right? You don't want old, used up energy because then it's like, whatever.
You know, what's really interesting about that is that just very, very recently, medical researchers has found out that there really is such a thing as young and old blood.
Yeah.
They have.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
They found that if you take a transfusion from a 20-year-old guy and give it to an 80-year-old guy, the 80-year-old will have a significant health increase.
Yep.
Which also that sort of argues against like old people donating blood, because if you got a guy who's like really having a hard time trying to recover from something and you put an 80-year-old's blood into him, it's like that's maybe not such a great idea.
Well,
I don't know if it's so much the I'm not going down that.
Better than nothing, but it's not ideal. But anyway, so young blood. So Charlie was not exactly possessing any young blood. So that's why, besides the fact that there's really nothing to support this anyway. It just didn't make sense from a whole Wiccan point of view.
I agree.
To make him a sacrifice. But there was another possibility, which is that he was murdered actually by the people of Lower Quinton because Charlie himself was a witch or a warlock.
As the case may be.
And there was some stuff, remember I said he had this strange ability to communicate with animals, it seemed like. He was a great horse trainer, apparently. He also had the birds flocking around him and could subdue wild dogs. And he also apparently had some natterjack toads that he kept. And apparently these are strange little toads that don't really hip hop like other toads do. They kind of run instead.
Have you looked at these toads?
Yeah.
They're wide. They're wide body. So it's very hard for them to get a good jump going.
What are they called?
Natterjack toads, Natter.
So you know how a toad, usually their body is the shape of it from their chest is kind of conical. These things are more like a frisbee with eyes and legs.
Oh my God, they're so cute. Just little derpy things. Aww.
So that's why they don't jump very much, because they can.
They're so round and weird.
Yeah. Cute little thing.
No, yeah. So he kept some of those. He had some of those.
So those were pets or lived near his house, one of the two?
Repeatedly, he actually kept them, and apparently you could use a natterjack to put a hex in your neighbor's crops. And what he did was he tied a small toy plow to one of the frogs, or one of the toads, I guess, and sent it scurrying off across people's fields, which caused their crops to fail. And as a matter of fact, there was a big failure in 1944 of the crop. And it's rumored that the local townsfolk blamed Charlie for this.
So you know what I would do if I was a guy who was slowly working through my savings account and having a hard time continuing to do my farm work, but needed to still eat, and there happened to be an abundance of toads around. I would gather them up and keep them to eat them.
Yeah, I would, that's the thing, is Charlie kind of had an interest in not seeing people's crops fail.
I was going to say, he was a farmhand. His job depended on the crops being successful.
Yeah. Well, and if he had but if he in some way encouraged these little toads to be around, I'm like, that's a food source, man.
Probably. And let's not forget, this was still the tag end of World War II, so food was probably a little scarce.
Rationing.
There was some rationing.
Lots of rationing.
And so, yeah, those things probably made good food sources, along with local rabbits and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Some of the stories, too, about Charlie, like he could have birds eating out of his hand and stuff like that, they seem to be a bit apocryphal.
Yeah.
And the doing wild dogs and stuff. Yeah.
There's people who are the dog whisperer. People who can talk in a soothing tone, and they're able to calm animals down, and there are people who can do that.
Yeah.
The whole bird eating out of the hand thing, if he is going to the same place feeding the birds every day, it's like the old lady at the park with the pigeons.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So it's entirely possible that's what he was doing.
Yeah, and it's these, I used to see him, he always would feed the birds, and they would eat out of his hand, and then, of course, our lovely Newsy grabs that and throws it in the weekly rag, and there you go.
Yeah, a little indication there of witchcraft. Yeah, and Inspector Fabian actually didn't talk about any of this witchcraft stuff in his police reports, but later on, when he started writing books, he started mentioning this stuff a little bit more. But obviously, he had sort of an interest in selling books.
Oh yeah.
So he, sexing it up with interest.
It seems so late to be doing the witchcraft thing. Like 1945, seriously, you're gonna be like, she's a witch.
Well, he added that like 5 years later or something.
I know, but that just seems so late. Like the 1950s, seriously, this is the thing you're still gonna bring out and say, well, he was a witch, so we had to kill him. That's insane to me.
There's still.
I was gonna say, I still know people who burn sage when you put it in the bundle, and it's this.
Okay, let's be fair. That's very different from killing someone because you think they're a witch.
But there are people who still believe in, and I apologize if anybody doesn't like me saying this, but there are still people who believe in ghoulies and ghosties and all these other things that we can't see being real and trying to defend themselves. And weird stuff like that happens. The 1940s is not as cosmopolitan as
I'm not saying it's cosmopolitan. I'm just saying there's a huge difference between believing there's a ghost in your house and literally bludgeoning an old man to death and cutting a cross in his chest because you think he might be a witch.
Britain has had 500 years of hunting witches.
I
don't think it's just a cultural norm.
I still just think it's crazy, and I still think it's crazy that somebody would be like, "Oh, this is a good theory for why."
Well, that's the thing about it. Is there might have been a few Looney Tuners in Lower Quinton who actually believed that sort of stuff, but the entire village,
probably
seems like
not.
a bit of a stretch.
The other thing that this particular theory makes me think of is, You had mentioned at one time the whole nobody in the village would talk and say what they knew what was going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the wall of silence.
Yeah, and it was because of this they killed the warlock thing is what you see in a lot of places. But I found the best description somewhere, which was they would share nothing with him because they knew nothing and had nothing to share. None of them were there.
Yeah.
That was it. You know, that was the whole thing.
Hundreds of people who weren't there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It probably from the Scotland Yard's point of view is like saying that nobody would talk to us. Well, they interviewed everybody, and everybody said, "I don't have a clue."
Yeah.
You know? And so probably.
Or they told them the little bit they knew, which was unhelpful.
For me, it's similar to if somebody came to one of us and said, "Hey, I want to talk to you about the Kyron Horman disappearance," and we'd be like, "I don't know," and they'd be like, "The Thinking Sideways crew is stonewalling us."
Totally. Yeah.
It's the same thing to me, where it's like we live in the same city, but like what? No, you don't know anything, so what do you have to say?
Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm ashamed to admit this, but I don't really know anything about Kyron. I mean, other than a few basic facts, I don't really, I haven't really followed
which is
it
okay
that much.
because you're not involved in the case.
Yep.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. If we ever choose to cover that, I might have a good source or two, but we'll put that. But anyway, Charlie's niece, Edie, back to our story. I saw a BBC interview with her. It was a brief little interview, and I know, Steve, you've seen it.
This is the best.
Oh, yeah, it's great. It's just this guy, this BBC journalist, is being very melodramatic about the whole thing. And he's actually out at the base of Mayon Hill in his trench coat and everything, with his long hair flowing in the breeze and stuff. And he's going like...
It's more like puffing around in the breeze. Yeah. It's not flowing at all.
Yeah, and then he talks to Edie and says, you know... what about all this? What about all this witchcraft? And she's like, I don't know what is this.
This is, you can't,
stop. Don't do the accent.
No, this is like, I've never heard of it actually. The Piper's just made it all up.
I like that every time he does an accent, it sounds slightly German.
Well, he watched a lot of Monty Python.
Yeah.
Well, then the interview goes, I mean, Warwickshire is reputed to be a great center of witchcraft and sorcery. Have you ever met a witch? And she says, no, never heard of it, actually. she's like, this is all rubbish.
Joe and I had the best conversation on the phone the other day about the fact that this is obviously one of those things that the guys from Monty Python learned to parody.
Oh, yeah. Because
it is so absurdly funny when you watch it.
It's unintentionally kind of funny. And, obviously these guys were kind of an inspiration for the Python guys, I think.
I'm sure.
I really do. But Edie was great. She's just like, oh, don't know anything about that, actually. All right, some more theories. There was, of course, the Italians. They were...
No.
Yeah, I know. They did catch one Italian with some blood in his hands, but it turned out that he had just gotten out so he could go hunt rabbits to supplement his diet.
Yeah.
Which, again, kind of makes sense because, again, wartime rationing, you can't really blame him for that.
As the token Italian on this podcast, I think Italians didn't do it.
You think so? Okay,
Yep.
I'll buy that. No, there was no reason for him. Again, these guys had a sweet deal going on.
Yep.
You know, I mean, there was no reason to go out and murder
Granted,
this guy.
the weather in England is not nearly as nice as it is in Italy, but you're not fighting.
Some parts of Italy are kind of gross.
I gotta say, one nice thing I like about Britain over Italy is they have, number one, no volcanoes. Number two, no massive earthquakes. Okay. But other than that, Italy's got a lot going for it. Back to our theories. This is another theory that was considered but kind of dismissed by the police. But apparently Charlie had a friend named George Higgins. They'd known each other for many years. Mm-hmm. They hadn't talked for a few months, but they were well acquainted. And Higgins was actually working quite close by, like in a barn, like maybe 300 yards from the murder scene. And obviously, in a murder, you really want to look at family and acquaintances first, right?
Right. So
Higgins was, given a little bit of scrutiny, and maybe he did it. I don't know, but the police really couldn't find any motive. I mean, they seemed to be friends.
How far away was he supposedly working?
Supposedly, like 300 yards away, or right around.
Oh, like right there.
He was close by.
He would have maybe heard something.
300 yards is still a ways. I mean, it's just
3 football fields.
Yeah.
That's not helpful to me. You should know that by now.
Yeah.
No, I know. It's not close.
3 city blocks.
Yeah, but that's not if somebody's getting murdered 3 city blocks away in the outdoors, you think you might hear something.
Well, but the thing about it
They're
is...
both old men.
But there's a fight, right? I mean, there were defensive wounds, so there was a fight. I don't know. I'm going to play devil's advocate right now.
I appreciate that, but you don't know. I mean, besides the distance, you don't know what the terrain was like. They might have been over a hill. There might have been all kinds of hedges in between.
He could have been listening to our podcast.
He could have been listening to a podcast.
Because he was a time traveler.
Yep.
Exactly. And of course, you're on a farm, so if you hear a scream, you might just think it's an animal.
Yeah. Slaughtering a pig.
Yeah, so he probably thought nothing of it. Or, he heard a few screams and just thought, well, I don't want to get involved. So.